So the dev build has been deployed. At this point, the schema should be available in the UI and content management should also be possible. So let's quickly verify that aspect. So all of this is available for administration, which is good. Now let's start another mode. Uh, Mode flow is JAID is the code. This is to hack Amplify backend by creating CLJS namespaces. So the backend project name, let it be suffixed by backend helper. Let this ports also. These ports enable to hack backend and frontend from Vim directly, as I will demonstrate. Okay, let's make the directory and cd into it. Figamp sc1 backend helper. Let's start a new debug session. As usual, let's rename it as setup. Let's create the skeletal backend helper directories. While at it, let's create the front end directories also. Let's resume backend helper work. Now I've checked out the source repo for from the source uh, helper project in my machine, and we'll be using it for reference instead of navigating to Chrome and copy pasting it. So let's use shadow CLJS setup to set up a hackable node library for admin backend. So I'll do this step by step. We can also do it in one shot, but let me just do this one step by step. So I copy the code from the source example project. I make sure that the port is the one that we had set up earlier. It outputs to our Okay, there's something wrong here. No problem. Let's try and do it again. This time, let's execute the whole thing. Now let's check whether it happened. Yes, the output is going to figamp SC1 backend helper. Perfect. So this is done. Next, we need the node fetch npm dep to execute GraphQL APIs. We just do it quickly. Let's check it. So figamp SC1 backend helper, your dependency is node fetch. Next, let's create a window for the console. Let's create another one for the code. Core will be the main namespace. We can check the basic queries in the end to see how one can typically use regex etc. in the querying. So let's uh, copy and then edit core. So that's done. So here in the end, you can see these are the typical queries that you would execute, right? So you are saying from my POI master v4, let me get the regex expression in my tag query. So this will actually help you jump from one tag to the other. Now the above core namespaces actually uses many other related namespaces. Util.clj is where you define macros. This is where CLJS integration really shines, as you will have full macro support to tame cognitive load. We can get to that a little later. Uh, Now you may follow this if you have to set up uh, a local repo for reference, but I've already done it. So I'm good to directly copy the required files. That takes care of util. That takes care of util CLJS. Next is csvlib. That takes care of csvlib too. The next is graph common. That takes care of graph common too. So we need complicated code schema in mode queries in the helper project we just created. So let's do that. For that, you need to again go back to the main project. You need to go to the setup. You need to do an amplify checkout dev. Once this happens, you can do a code gen. Now can go back to what you were doing. Can make the mod queries from the new APIs. Let's see whether things work properly. Let's do an npmi. Let's do a watch app. So build run can actually, okay, let me just restart my tmux here, adding unnecessary. Okay, there's something wrong, I think. Let me just check quickly. Four nine two two zero. Some problem 25760. What did it say? 25760. think this is the one problematic. Let's save this. Let's see whether that solved it. Let's see whether it really solved it. 49788. We connect 49788. Okay, that's not needed maybe. So I think we were somewhere here. So all this happened, all this happened. This happened. I think we were here. Whether this works properly? Yeah, it works properly. Let's go to code. Let's create another pane. Let's go down there, reduce the size, start it there. While it's getting started, let's open the core namespace. Okay, so things are not bound since we restarted the. It's pretty easy to fix it. So go here and just say def. So we say this. We wanted this too. We wanted this too. We wanted this too. And we wanted this too. Now let's see whether we're able to open it. We're able to open it. Once the build is complete, let's start the console. If it's already running it, we need to do a few control C's. Go to the source.js directory and start the helper. So the helper is started. Now you can go to code and connect the REPL. Port is piggyback. You enter, and this way you are able to have a REPL going. Exactly what we wanted. Now open Git. Create a new window for Git. Okay, can do a init. Can see the status. Okay, before this, let me see whether there is a amp sc1 backend helper. Maybe it's not there. Yeah, status is fine. Add shadow vim things node modules lock and output. Add these files. Add a git ignore to. Now see the status. Prepare an initial commit. go and create a private repo in my account called figamp se1 backend helper. Add origin here. Push the code. Now we know that the API key and the endpoint have to be configured properly. So what we do is go to code, so here we can change the API key and endpoint from the other window, other screen. So the API key is this, right? So we change it. We change the endpoint. Endpoint is this. Okay. We save it and see whether it compiles. Yeah, it compiled. Now you start administering data by creating labels, which will create label code, code label. The IDs will be the code for the labels. So we can actually start by creating the labels themselves. Right, so we just run this. Let's see whether it's creating. So each label is some phrase for which we are actually using a auto creation IDs as code for the strings that we create. So having done that, we need to create namespaces from these codes and two functions. So this got created. So here, let's see whether uh, in step 4, it outputs to the correct namespace. It looks like, yeah. So it's outputting it to the correct namespace. So let's go ahead and see whether we are able to create it. Right? So you have to check whether they got created okay. The way we do it is, again, go to the fourth window, okay, and see whether we are able to looks like it got created. Also we can check whether it got created in the fig amp sc1 front end helper, src main. So it got created here too. So these are the two things that we checked. So let's formatting here. So that's codified. Now we can actually resume what we were doing in the code window. Remove this comment and save it and see where it compiles. It compiled. Now we need to upload the image, but you have to create a S3 folder for that. So figamp sc1 is the name of the project. So let's create a bucket of the same name, figamp sc1. block public access. Okay, create a bucket. Okay, acknowledge, create a bucket. So the bucket is created. Now what we do is try and copy the assets in a recursive way. Okay, that being done, now what we need to do is open another tab with some example public bucket policy that I have. So I'll open it here. Sorry, not here. I'll open it here. And here what you do is open the bucket we just created, which is this, and go to permissions. We edit the bucket policy to something that is similar to this. Only difference being instead of www we actually have the name of the project, that is figamp sc1, right? Save changes. Now let's see whether the images are publicly available. Looks okay. Now we can proceed to do the other parts of the data admin, which includes creating the subcats. Create the subcats. We create the POIs. Okay, looks right. Let's create the POIs. As a last step, we create the channel partners also. Okay, now we are ready to check in. So we go to the get window, we do a status, we add the constants as well as, yeah, so we add this new file and then we prepare a commit and we push it. Now switch back to the Taku mode flow and extend it by adding a REST API. Such APIs will be useful to integrate things like webhooks. So we go to okay. So we create another window for code, create another window for white running, go ahead and run. We run dev, we create another window for git, we go here. So this we will not address. So there is a function that it expects. This needs to come from the JID workflow, mode flow, which will not address right now. So what we'll do right now is create a API, REST API for WA webhook, a Node.js Hello World kind of a template which has access to APIs, GraphQL APIs. So what we do is create an API. Say REST API. Let it be named as, so let's say that we create a path WA web hook, WA web hook. Let it be Node.js, let it be hello world, let it. So I did some mistake, so let me update it right away. So I made a mistake in the path. Second, I thought it was update function then. Okay, let me try that. Book. Yeah, so here we say resource access permission is what I need to update. I say API. I say I need this. I need query mutation subscription. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So now that I've updated it, so let's see whether it created an outline. It did. Let's rename it to ES6 format. Let's replace the entire thing and copy it from the reference project. Copy it from reference project again. We add a dependency in package for NBB. Okay, now we can actually create a sample directory for the event. So create a new directory, reference, and copy the sample event. A typical call to a webhook will come with such samples like payloads. Let's say escape, say everything, do a status, prepare a commit, prepare a status, and now push. Segment 7 ends. So the push will take time. Let's see whether it started to build. Yeah, so we can finish the segment here.